Hey, everybody. Welcome to SF Indie Fest, the kind of all independent eclectic film festival where we've been programming films in San Francisco for the last 2 decades plus. I don't think that we would have ever imagined that we would be programming our film and screening our films as part of a virtual experience, but that's the way the world works today. And we're lucky enough to have the talented team between our centerpiece film, Summertime, joining us today. So if we can give them a warm welcome. Thanks for being here, everybody. Maybe a good place to start is I'll introduce Director Carlos Lopez Estrada. And Carlos, some of you in the Bay Area might already be aware of it. Was his, I think his feature debut was Blind Spotting, right? Shot in Oakland, and a love letter to that story. Great film and a great follow-up. So thanks again for sharing that with us. Can you kind of introduce kind of our talented team of actors and writers that we have here today?
Yes, of course. I'll just go through their names quickly and tell you a little bit about what they did. We have Gordon, we have Tyrus, we have Mila, and we have Xochitl. All four of them were part of the writing team, and they're all featured cast in the movie, and they're all a part of this wonderful community of young spoken word artists that I was introduced to roughly 3 years ago. So the movie is a little bit unconventional in the sense that it was written by 25 people, and it features poetry and contributions from 25 different artists. We all work together over the summer. I'm sure they'll tell you about their experiences in a second. We all work together over the summer, piecing together each of their contributions so that they could all be a part of what ended up becoming Summertime. So I'm happy to be joined by all four of them.
Well, welcome everybody. Maybe a good place to start is that, like, at what point in time did you know that you wanted to make a film together, or there was the story that you wanted to tell would be captured, in a feature film?
It all started in a poetry workshop, like a showcase that the nonprofit that all of them were brought together by, called Get Lit, invited us to. So it was me and two of the producers of the movie. We came to just see them. It was sort of like a rehearsal / performance. It was, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 30 of them, essentially just coming in front of us, sharing a very, very brief sort of like overview of who they are as an artist and what their poetry was going to speak about. Then they would share a 2 to 3 minute long poem, and this was maybe for like two and a half hours. And I just remember the experience that we had after walking out of this showcase was just so powerful, so profound, that I spoke to the woman who runs the organization and just said, look, I would love to see if there's a way to turn this into something. I'm not sure if it's theater or film, or like how exactly we can collaborate, but I would love to bring this same experience that I just had to other people, because I think it's really important. Anyway, long story short, we later decided to do it as an independent film, pulling inspiration from movies like Slacker and other films that are sort of like built on this sort of like collaborative storytelling. And then we presented the idea to the poets, and they would bring some of their poetry or some of their loose ideas of how they would want to show their relationship to the city. And then from then on, we sort of like built what became Summertime together.
Nice. And maybe kind of a question for the kind of larger group, and I'll get kind of into the nitty gritty of making the film, but like, what brought each of you to kind of poetry and kind of spoken word originally, in the sense of like that this was kind of the art form or the kind of creativity that kind of you wanted to embrace?
Okay, Gordon. Can I answer that? Yes. Hello, everyone, by the way. My name is Gordon. Yeah, so with poetry, I grew up here in America as an immigrant from Hong Kong, and I moved here very young at 3 or 4. But culturally, the culture that I was brought up in was very traditionally Chinese. So speaking up for myself or being in touch with my emotions in that way in a very public manner was nothing that I ever really accessed in my home life. But it all started on Mother's Day when I was in 5th grade, when we had a Mother's Day. It was like an auditorium. Like we were all in the auditorium, and all the 3rd graders like learned songs, and I learned a song called "Mama" by Boys to Men. And some of my friends somehow convinced me to like grab the microphone dramatically and walk to the front of the stage and sing the song to everybody. And that's when a performer was born. They did it at first intentionally, at least they told me after, like hopefully I would like make a fool of myself, and like they were my friends, so they did it in good fun sort of thing. And so they kind of pushed me to do that, and I was like, okay, if it's going to be funny, I'll do it. But after I got a taste of that, I just never looked back. So ever since then, I was kind of looking for different ways to perform, and poetry just seemed like the best way, not only for me to speak on my own personal experiences, but also have that performative aspect. So it combined a love of literature and words, and also personal experience and performance. So that's what it was for me.
Well, it raises an interesting question. That's a cool story, Gordon. Is that obviously you all are very creative and talented folks, right? And that's just even seen even more in the film. But like when Carlos came and was speaking to all these different kind of different poets and things, how did you all feel about then kind of trying to bring your art to in the film? Because obviously making films are a little bit different, was that kind of an interesting challenge? And I mean, I guess also it's just like it is LA, so I mean, was this just more normal, I guess, than maybe if it would be dealing with poets and another place in the United States?
Mila.
Yeah, Mila.
Yeah, I'll speak to that just a little bit, and saying that like as far as process for this movie in particular, like some of the poems had already existed and were sort of fitting into a narrative, whereas other poems were written like specifically for the movie to act as like connective tissue to like tell certain stories. And so I think that there's probably, I think, differences for every individual like within the movie as far as like what it was to bring this work into the film. And then I also just think that like many of us have experience performing like on stage, in theaters, at schools, like and I think that that was like a really big difference for many of us, was like within like filming a movie, you have to perform your poem like a bunch of times to like get that take. And I think that is super fun and interesting and like strange, because we're used to just like having 3 minutes, like letting it go, getting it out there, and then like walking back and just being like, whoa, I did it. Whereas when you have a camera there and you're like saying the same poem over and over again, it can just be a lot. It's just different, it's a little bit more intense. It allows you to spend more time with the words. And also, like, I don't know, my scene is on a bus and it was hot and there was no AC when we were filming, and it was just like very full of adrenaline and all of that. But I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to their particular experience.
Sochi, Tyrus? Sochi?
Yeah, I think for me, so my poem is in this this restaurant with the mariachi playing on stage, and my poem's about my dad and how like when he first immigrated to the States, he and still like now, like he made his living as a mariachi, doing gigs and stuff. And so it was really cool to kind of like, and I also was a gigging musician, so like I had never performed a poem in the context of another part of my life, which it felt so like disconnected in just real life, where it was like the poetry I was writing about the experiences felt like 2 different moments. But when we were filming that, it was like almost like bringing those 2 things together, because we built the restaurant, we built the music, we built the group, and then that moment that the poem was about, like the lineage that the poem was about, was just kind of like living there, which was really cool. So yeah, it just kind of felt like it was bringing the poem to life, because you perform on stage at this school and you're just kind of yourself with the microphone, or like yourself with the notebook, and then all of a sudden it's just like the poem flowers in front of you, which was really cool to watch for everybody, not just mine. It was really cool.
And I guess, this is, Carlos, you kind of alluded to the kind of some of the previous films that you were kind of inspired that might affect the way that you might structure, film the film. Is like, what was the collaboration in the workshops and schools before the film? I mean, were you all friends and kind of creative supporters? And then how did the development of, I mean, was there a script for the film, or was it was kind of ideas for scenes? Like, how much of it was improv versus structure, I guess?
Tyrus, do you want to maybe talk about the community that existed prior to the movie, and then I'll just jump in terms of like how the movie. Yeah, I'm just passing it over to you.
So I don't know if I can really talk about it because I really wasn't like a part of it for as long as others may have been. I started Get Lit, I would say probably like almost 2 years now, and I was just really amazed by how everyone interacted, how art was just embraced in this community. And it definitely showed me the different ways that we can live and the different ways that we can interact with each other. And I would say that it definitely brought me out of my shell. I'm one to be like, you know what, I'm just going to be over here and mind my business. But it was like, no, like you need to speak on matters that just affect you. And I began to become more confident, not only in my writing, but in my being, and that being in Get Lit, the community, and also during this process of filming the movie, because I got to see my poetry in different lights and different aspects and different avenues. So I was just amazed by not only just the process of learning myself, but the process of creating art with an entire group of people who were just stellar.
That was beautiful. And then I'll just pick it from where Tyrus left. But as you can tell by speaking to all these 4 incredible artists, they are all brilliant, but they're all so different. And I think that is part of what made the process of developing Summertime and then shooting Summertime so unique and so different from any movie I'll probably ever work on. Is just the fact that every single scene, every single moment, we were dealing with a completely different personality, different set of values, different message they were trying to do, different style of performing, of speaking, of writing. So there isn't like one particular way that we build the movie or a formula that we follow. Like we write them, we shoot them, we rehearse them. Like it really was. We sit down in meetings or phone calls. Like Xochitl, for example, was out of town a bit. There were some other poets that had to come in. So we would just talk to each of them and just say, look, what is it that you want to convey? What is your poem about? And tell us as much as you can about it. Where would you want to shoot it? Let's try to craft a scene around it so that we give it the context that makes sense to you. Do you want to bring anyone particular into the shooting process of it? Like Xochitl has her dad next to her playing the mariachi song, as well as some other fellow mariachi people that she plays with, performance musicians. Sorry, I'm my vocabulary is short today. And like we shot in there's a poem called Home, and we shot in both of those poets' actual homes featuring their families. So really it was sort of like designing each moment with each of these performers and just saying like, look, what tools can we give you to express your intent as best as we can. So it was almost like shooting, I don't know, like 15, 16, 17 mini movies, and each of them had its very specific set of rules and challenges and things that made it exciting. So it's really hard to think about it as like one thing. It was a breathing, living thing. We had a script maybe like a week before shooting, and then it changed 1,000 times, and then it changed in post. just to give you an idea of how unusual of a process we follow.
Well, thanks for sharing. I guess it raises a kind of another filmmaking questions that, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's a really beautiful film, and it feels very intentional in the way that you kind of aesthetically captured the film, and so often sometimes in other similar films, filmmakers often choose like a more observational style or a more kind of documentary style to it, whereas it's so crafted. How did you kind of blend together these kind of very intentional visuals with the kind of the nature of working with these kind of impromptu elements, I guess, in there?
I mean, I would love to tell you that there was this very clear, clean, methodical approach, but it was really just how Tyrus is making fun of me playing with my beard. No, it was really just, it was an artistic process. I don't know how else to describe it. We essentially just said, let's get together and see how we make some sense of this. There are some scenes like Paulina who we really built it up into this larger than life dance number. And then there are some scenes that are mostly covered with like real documentary footage that we shot, but we essentially had a documentarian just going around LA and collecting pieces to supplement some of these poems. So it really, we really sort of like tried to think of it holistically of like how these could all make sense. Obviously the fact that we had one DP and one crew shooting all of these and myself, I think that kind of helped unify them aesthetically a little bit, but they really are, all of them are executed so differently, and that I hope is part of the charm and the appeal of the movie, that there's not one formula that we try to fit all of the poets onto. It was more of like, look, we're making ourselves available to you, and then like use us in whatever makes most sense for your particular beat. So yeah, I don't know, Mila maybe can also speak a little bit about this, because she, in addition to being a performer and a writer, she also served in the movie as the poetry supervisor. So that meant that she worked with every single one of the poets and us, essentially editing and crafting them together. So Mila, I don't know, Mila, if you have something specific to add.
I mean, definitely, I'm not as far as visuals. I think that is like all of y'all's genius on the filmmaking side, but I think that like poetry itself is so visual, and I think that working within everybody's particular stories and narratives are so deeply personal, and the images that we choose reflect that, as well as like the physical locations. I think that something that's so special about Summertime is that it also like showcases so much more of LA than I think you would usually see in a film about LA, because we are really bringing in all of the different neighborhoods that aren't always reflected. And I think that that's just because like all the people within our poetry community like come from so many various places, but we all in some way or another call Los Angeles home. And so I think that like our particular like nook of the city has its own aesthetic, within that. And that's going to be reflected in our visual writing. And also just like our own styles. Like I'm thinking about Tyrus and like Tyrus's fashion. Like, can we discuss that? Because we all also, the way we present ourselves, like so much of our artistic work is reflected in both our aesthetics, the aesthetics of our neighborhoods. And so I think it makes for a really interesting and intentional like visual accompaniment, I guess.
Nice. And this question for all the poets and performers is that, how do you think participating in a film like this changed the way that you saw your poetry and how it influenced either your performance? I kind of think about this in two ways. One is, did it inspire you to want to use visual tools on your own to kind of showcase your poetry and your own things outside of the film? Or now we've been living in this pandemic for almost a year, and so much of it is kind of video oriented, and so I assume there aren't kind of live poetry slams going on. Is like, are there ways that you're kind of the filmmaking process is, I guess, influence the way that you've kind of approached either your writing or your performance and with your poems?
I'll speak to that. Personally, for me, I think the whole process of, like I said, seeing the poem flower visually really influenced, I think, my entire creative practice. I think beyond just writing poetry, I realized kind of like the really personal kind of message I was able to get across with sharing music, visuals, and the writing, which like I'm not going to call myself a filmmaker, but like, you know, I'm in college, I'm experimenting, I'm seeing what's up. But like it has definitely felt like a sacred space at the intersection of all of these different elements. And I think especially this like digital age of like quarantine where we all kind of exist in this like filmic kind of realm like that we're existing in right now, you know, we're talking and we're existing in video and kind of aesthetically presenting ourselves has been kind of just very formative in how I approach creating things now. But yeah, the whole process of working with everybody too and seeing how all of our work all came together too really made me just value collaboration so much more. We were already kind of collaborating and writing poetry, but to collaborate on such a large scale project and seeing how beautifully everyone's kind of personal creative process came together was really inspiring to make me and make others, I think, embrace collaboration in general. But yeah, I think for me, the whole process has been super, super guiding and formative, but we'll see where it goes. I don't know where it's going to go.
Tyrus, do you want to speak a little bit to this? Because I know that you've also been embarking on a multimedia artistic journey.
I have actually, I would say since being in the film and since, as Mila said, like doing your poem over and over again in a setting like that really just enables you to see things in different lights. Like I was able to do my performance of Ode to Yelp like multiple different ways that I was like, oh wow, I can do it this way at this show and this way. And I can like never get bored of it, even though I am now. I would say after being in something like this, a part of this project, I was able to know that I have the resources to make something on my own. So I like literally took my phone and I filmed one of my own poems, like literally like around my room and stuff, like with visuals. It came out super cute and you can check it on my Instagram at Winter Issues. Look at me plugging myself. But yeah. Yeah, I would say I'm just so amazed and so happy to have been a part of a project like this and so honored that Carlos was like, you know what, I see something in y'all. Let me do something. Let me make this magic with y'all. So it was just, it's so amazing. And I know I'm going to say amazing multiple times, but I just want you to realize that it was amazing.
Nice. Well, I think the film turned out really great. And I guess one of my kind of final questions for you, Carlos, is, you know, with your kind of first two.
Oh wait, I think your audio dropped off. Do y'all hear him? No, yeah, something happened. I think something dropped off.
Oh no.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you are.
Perfect,
There you are.
yes.
Hey there, technical difficulties.
Okay, it's part of the era.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of wrap up, I have a kind of a general question. I think that that those in the Bay Area might be interested in knowing, Carlos, is like with your two first films with, you know, Blind Spotting and now with Summertime, you really kind of capture kind of a sense of place, you know, with Blind Spotting Oakland and, you know, with Summertime, you know, LA. What is it that you think that like the locations and geography, how does it kind of inform your kind of filmmaking or how you decide to kind of approach? I mean, because you distinctly capture both these places, you know, in such great ways.
Well, I think Blind Spotting, we were really able to do it because we had David and Rafa at the helm of that project, and obviously, you know, the Bay and Oakland particularly is like such a part of their DNA. And you were talking about sort of like a observational point of view earlier, and I feel like my role in that movie was a little bit more of like a I mean, in Summertime as well, but particularly in Blind Spotting, it was more of a translator of just trying to amplify sort of like their ideas and their point of view and their relationship with their city. But it's a city that was not my own, so I came in very much with like an observer's point of view to sort of like see what about their relationship to the city we could capture. We could sort of like translate into images. But for this, I mean, I have lived in LA for now the majority of my life, so my relationship to this city it is, I think, a lot more personal. And what I was so moved about in that first poetry session that inspired this whole movie was to see that the one thing that we all had in common, even though all the stories and backgrounds were, you know, so as different as they could be, is that all these poets were talking about their relationship to the city, how they exist within it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the confusing, the beautiful things about it. And that alone just sort of like brought us all together, the fact that we were existing in this time and this place together. So that is really what I think Summertime attempts to capture. It doesn't really give you it doesn't give you a point of view on LA or like how you should think about it or how you should see it. It just tells you here are a few very distinct, very different people that are just sharing their experience in the city, and then you make of it whatever you want. So I don't know if I'm answering your question at all, but what was exciting to me about this movie was essentially trying to paint a portrait of a city through the eyes of this group of young artists that I thought was just so interesting and so inspired. And Gordon, I know you've only answered one, so I would love to pass it over to you. Do you want to maybe just share a little bit about sort of like how, like, just build on my answer?
Yes, absolutely. I actually wanted to say a small note about the question from earlier, so I'm glad you said something, Carlos. I appreciate you. Thanks for seeing me. Yeah, the way that poetry has influenced filmmaking for me, I started screenwriting not too long. I just finished my first pilot, actually, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yes, it feels like a huge accomplishment for me. And the way that poetry, like I can see just in that one episode that I've written, poetry has already worked its way into it without even me noticing it until this moment when you asked that question of us. And so I can see in several scenes where poetry has already like taken root in there. And on top of that, I guess I'll build on geography. I think something that it's wild to me that all of us are put in the same room, Zoom room, but all of us are put in the same room together, being from such vastly different places. And I think what Carlos does is he's there with you in the room. He's not thinking, all of my experiences with Carlos so far and all of his art and his filmmaking, it's present, and that's really the best word for it. He's looking at you in the eye and looking at you and talking to you. He's not looking at you and judging you for what you're saying or who you are or even what value you have to bring to his project. And that's what has made Summertime so beautiful. I think for everyone who's seen it, is it's present and it tries to speak to everyone like they're there in the scene with them. And I think poetry has a huge role in that, in grounding us in that and putting everyone in the same room, reminding everyone we live under the same sky, under the same sun, and we're breathing the same air, and that we're all one, we're all the earth. So I think Carlos does a really great job with that. I think the film is a beautiful way of doing that as well. And yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Well, I think thanks again, everybody, for letting us kind of inhabit that space over the course of the film. I think I speak not just for myself, but also the audience is getting a chance to kind of experience this film. It's a very special place, and feel fortunate enough to be able to experience it within the cocoon that you created, this kind of visual cocoon that you created. So I know each of you are kind of creative individuals in different ways. For those in the audience that want to kind of continue to, follow your endeavors and things, are there ways that they can kind of continue to follow the film, but also Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anything for each of you? So Tyrese, do you want to start first and we'll kind of make our way around?
Yes. Hello, my name is Tyrese Winter, and you can follow me at Winter Issues on all platforms. And I recently just started a TikTok, so if you recognize me from there, I am so sorry.
Mila?
Hi. Okay, so Mila Kuda. I'm mostly on Instagram. My Instagram is D.hour, like the word dour. It means unsmiling and unfriendly, and I promise it's ironic. Also, something that I just want to say is that we are currently working on a Summertime book that is going to coincide with the release of the film upcoming this summer. All of our work is going to be in it. It's a beautiful collaboration. So also look out for that book and please get it because it's literally so beautiful and cool and amazing. But yeah, so find me on Instagram and I'm just going to pass it on to Sochi.
I am currently taking a social media hiatus, but I plan to come back with a more kind of creative centered account rather than personal centered account for personal reasons. But you can follow my account right now. It's at Soch Morales, and I'll be doing a reboot pretty soon. But for right now, I'm not anywhere except here. But yeah, and to Gordon.
Thanks, Sochi. I actually have some things to show you. You can follow me on Instagram at Learn and Reflect. But Learn and Reflect, all one word, no capitals. Here, I'm propping them up. So for the book that Mila finished, there's my closet. For the book that Mila mentioned that is promoting the movie, some of us are put some of our poetry in there, but some of us did different work, and this is my first set of paintings that I've ever done.
Oh, cool.
They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a 3-set piece. I was literally just on the floor right now. I really got into that. I was really excited to share them, obviously. Yes, so you can find those works in that book, along with a bunch of different things that all of the artists and poets and performers have worked on. But yeah, I think that's
great. Where's is the book available for pre-order anywhere, or what's the best place to kind of?
It's actually I'll take it up and then also talk a little bit about where to follow the progress of the movie as a whole, because it's coming out this summer and we're very, very excited about it. The book is going to be available for pre-sale. I think we're probably going to launch the pre-sale early February, because we're having the trailer for the movie coming out and we're going to announce the release date and all. There's a big push that's coming soon. And then you'll be able to find all the information on the book. And just to mention that the movie comes out in June, and we're obviously going to be making a big grassroots effort to bring as many people as possible to watch it. But if anyone from this festival ends up watching it and thinks that it's worth getting behind and it's worth supporting, which we hope you do. Please stay connected. You can add the movie's account on Instagram. It's Summertime the Movie with an underscore, Summertime underscore the movie, and please tell people about it, friends, family. When it comes out, it's going to be a small indie release, so it's the kind of movie that will live and breathe really on word of mouth. And if you go to the movie by yourself versus going to the movie with your best friend, that makes a difference. And if you go to the movie with all your family, that makes even a bigger difference. So please, just tell if you like it and want to support it, tell people that and make sure that they show up on opening weekend, because it'll really mean a lot to us, and it'll just mean that more people will be able to see it, which is ultimately the goal of it. So hope we can stay connected.
Well, thank you. And I think, the audience out there, I know you've heard me say this before with other films, but, we're blessed to have filmmakers and artists share their films with us at our film festival. And they're depending on you. If you like the movie, go to social media right afterwards and, like the page and post and say, hey, I just saw this great movie, Summertime, that's coming out this summer. They depend on you. Like, you're getting a chance to see this movie early, so you can kind of help spread the word. So thank you for our audience at SF Indie Fest for supporting our filmmakers, and for our filmmakers and our writers and actors here. Thank you for joining us for the Q&A. You made a really beautiful film, and thank you again for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us and for featuring the movie.
Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.